Well, here we are once again with another entry into the Gundam retrospective. Today I am talking about the 2011 TV anime Mobile Suit Gundam Age. Perhaps one of the most unique and least talked about entries into the entire franchise. Age is kind of a weird duck. I mean, for one, it does look like Mega Block's Gundam, let's be honest. While the later designs and plot developments are all very in line with how adult Gundam usually is, there is no denying that the art style does give the impression that it is intended for a younger audience. That puts the show in a really strange spot because while it looks like something that would air directly after whatever season of Pokemon was on in 2011, this show has some undeniably hardcore events occur. I mean, there is on-screen child death in this show, more than once, but more on that later. Beyond the art style, Gundam Age is split into 4 separate arcs, with there being quite big time jumps in between the first 3. While this allows for some really fun moments, it also makes for some of the most rushed plot points in all of Gundam, and characters so one-dimensional that they could make Flat Stanley blush. It also has, in my opinion, one of the worst character progression arcs in all of the Gundam franchise. But we'll get into that eventually. The script actually came about because a Japanese game dev and director named Akihiro Hino was hired to make a Gundam video game. He was interested in working on the property, wrote an outline of a script, and Sunrise said, "Hey, why not?" As you can probably tell by the title of this video, I have split the discussion for Gundam Age into 2 videos. Originally, I was really trying to avoid this because I didn't want to delay any of the other November videos, but I got about 7 pages into the script and realized I was still discussing the first arc and was like, well, shit. So this video will be a discussion of the Flit arc of Gundam Age along with all of the setup for the world, and the next one will follow with the Asamu and Kyo arcs. Of course, much like the original series, Gundam Age would be cut down, though it still got 49 episodes. Weird that this show was originally supposed to run for a full year and a half. Oh, and if Akihiro Hino sounds familiar, it's because he's been at level 5 for a long time, doing everything from programming to directing to story writing. He's worked on some of their best properties like Dark Cloud, Dragon Quest VIII, and Professor Layton. Anyway, I have a lot to say about this one, so let's go ahead and get into it. Mobile Suit Gundam Age's opening arc follows the young, blue-haired protagonist, Flit Asano, a boy genius who literally holds the key to the series' most powerful mobile suit, a towering savior named Gundam. Age's storyline starts with a harrowing event called The Day the Angel Fell, a day where an unknown enemy shows up out of nowhere and completely destroys a civilian colony. This sparks a nearly cataclysmic war between the Earth Federation and a seemingly alien enemy. 14 years later, Flit lives on a colony called Nora. While he lives a normal life for the most part, going to school with his friend Emily, he has lived with the specter of the UE for the past 14 years. One day, Flit hears that a ship carrying 20 people has been attacked, and we see how obsessed with the UE Flit is, as he predicts Nora to be their next target based on data and patterns that he drew up himself. I told you he was a genius, didn't I? Unfortunately, no one really believes him, and even Emily tells him that the people of Nora don't really care about the UE because it's all so far away and it doesn't affect them. Well, it won't be so far away in about 15 minutes because UE suits show up and start attacking the colony. After being saved by a Federation mobile suit known as a Genoace, Flit boards and launches in a mobile suit of his own design, the Age 1 Gundam. The separate arcs of Age mimic certain aspects of the original Universal Century timeline, with the Flit arc being similar to Mobile Suit Gundam and so on. But while Amuro piloted a suit designed by his father, Flit pilots a suit of his own design, for the most part anyway. To pilot the Gundam, you have to use this strange looking ignition key, which Flit got from his dead mom, and it turns out that his family is renowned for building mobile suits for generations. So it kind of makes sense that this ignition key would contain the blueprints for their family's ultimate weapon. After launching, he makes short work of the attacking UE suits, but the colony has sustained so much damage that it's going to collapse in on itself in only 6 hours. So the plan is to gather all the civilians into the colony core, which has its own life support systems, and then simply detach it and tow it away. They're supposed to use the Federation mobile suit carrier, the Diva, to do this, but the captain and his men have other intentions and plan to flee without the core. This is when the ultimate Chad with the best facial hair shows up, a guy named Grodek Ainua, the deputy commander of Nora's Arenston base. He seems to have his own plan and just tases the Diva's captain, deciding to take the ship for himself. But he doesn't know that Emily and another kid named DK are watching from the shadows. While the colony is evacuated, Flit runs into a girl and saves her from a UE suit. Her name is Yurin, and she's known to have new type style powers right off the bat. While they make it out of the colony and into space, they're forced to fight off UE suits and to utilize something known as the Age System. So the Age System is basically a giant 3D printer that creates attachments for the Gundam and uses combat data to make more and more powerful parts. If you think this sounds like a Deus Ex Machina machine, well, yeah, it pretty much is, at least for the first arc. I think that's my biggest gripe when it comes to the story of the first part of Gundam Age. The general pattern of an episode involves Flit going up against a UE suit until he meets a challenge that can only be surmounted through a new usage of the Age System. And that really cheapens Flit's growth as a pilot because, you know, it doesn't feel like he's the one overcoming the odds. It's Grandpa Vargas back in the hangar who's coming in clutch with his magic 3D printer. With the help of Yurin's powers, Flit is able to fight off some of the more advanced mobile suits, but one of them makes it inside the colony, and the crew of the Diva, which is now under Grodek's command, orders Flit to go and destroy it. Flit is able to stop the suit from destroying the colony core, but Commander Bruzar of the Arenston base is killed when he detonates a construction mobile suit to clear a blockage away from the core. Before he does this though, he radios Flit and gives him a speech about saving people and responsibility, and this is something that will not only stick with Flit, but become a core part of who he is. The colony explodes in a really beautiful sequence, and while I do understand why a lot of people don't really like the art style of Age, I think it looks incredibly clean and the quality of the action is quite good throughout the entire show. However, I will say that sometimes the tone that the show takes, combined with its Mega Bloks art style, makes me a little bit confused. Not to get ahead of myself, but they literally kill kids on screen on multiple occasions in this show, all while looking like Drippy from Ni no Kuni is about to walk around the corner. Now, this isn't necessarily a bad thing. I think the tone actually elevated how much I liked Age in the end, but it is kinda weird. Now that all the characters are on board the Diva, which is under the command of the self-appointed Captain Grodek, they simply have to wait 10 hours for a Federation fleet to arrive. Flit doesn't get to sit idle, however, as a new character that has awoken from a pod inside the Diva comes to confront him. This is Wolf Enuckle. I think it's Enuckle. I keep wanting to say P-Knuckle, so you just bear with me on the names on this one, because I keep almost saying urine, and if you name a little girl urine, even if you're Japanese, man, even if you're space Japanese, like in Gundam, that's a little weird. He is a pro mobile suit racer and ace pilot who initially does not believe that someone like Flit could defeat a UE suit. Wolf wants to take the Gundam for himself after being appointed the mobile suit squad leader, and the two have a mock battle to determine who will pilot the suit. Their battle is interrupted by the arrival of UE mobile suits at a huge ship with cloaking tech, and the two must work together to defeat them. This makes Wolf realize that Flit should continue as the Gundam pilot, and that they will make a great team as long as they work together. So now the Diva is headed to a colony called Fardane after the Federation has taken custody of the colony core. Grodek gets screamed at by a commander who's telling him that he's going to be arrested for usurping control of the Diva, but like he doesn't really care and just kind of turns off the screen. And then he puts a disk in the computer that shorts out all of the comms network on the entire ship so the crew don't really get suspicious, although that would probably make me suspicious. And then when they get to the colony, the inspector comes to arrest him, and he's like, it would be a shame if, someone just outed you for having a secret bank account that you put illegal money in. I don't really know how Grodek found that out. I guess he's also just a super hacker. Meanwhile, Flit runs a kid over with a Segway and almost kills him. This kid's name is Dezel, and he turns out to be a rotten little goblin child and one of my favorite parts of Flit's arc. He ends up stealing the Gundam and fighting off some UE suits with ease. Even Wolf remarks that it looks as if Dezel knows their tactics. But no one whose name is one letter off from devil could actually be evil, even if he does give Flit this smile after leaving the Gundam behind. So now we hit my first really big issue with the first part of Gundam Age, and that's that they spend way too long on this colony dealing with these two warring factions. Grodek seems to know where the UE are striking from, an old decommissioned space fortress named Ambat. However, he really doesn't like the Federation, and he really hates the UE because his family were killed during the day the Angel fell. So his plan is to trade classified military information to the leader of one of the factions, Don Boyage, in return for ships and mobile suits. While this mini-arc does explain Grodek's backstory and give a lot of insight into how trash the Federation is in this series, I just find it really hard to care about these two factions and their dumpy mobile suits. Maybe the art style plays into it a little bit here, but their battles almost devolve into slapstick, and when they fight, these giant walls pop up all over the city. It's just hard to suspend your disbelief for how cartoony the Zalem v Yuba fights are. To expand on the thought of how shitty the Federation is in this show, the poor people on Fardain are forced to live in the walls of the colony between the inner and outer part of it. There's constant fighting between these two warring factions, which is like a holdover from the old colony wars where things were even shittier. The Federation simply does not care about these random colonies that are scattered around the Earth sphere, and that's quite possibly their most minor sin, as we will see later in the series. Flit finds himself in between the warring mobile suits, and while the Gundam is vastly more powerful than its enemies, he runs into trouble when a mysterious UE suit shows up and disarms him. This means Flit is now in custody of Don Boyage, though he's only being held long enough that Boyage's enemies don't think him to be soft, due to the deal with Grodek. Flit ends up saving a bunch of children from exploding when the Yuba faction shows up to attack Don's mansion, and this is the episode where Flit gets giant Gundam boxing gloves, which work in G Gundam, but here it's just a bit too silly. Also, I haven't mentioned him yet, but Flit is helping Largan, one of the other mobile suit pilots here. While I like Largan, there isn't really much to say about him. He's stuck in a grunt suit for his entire run on the show, and while he does pull off some cool stuff in it, he just sort of feels like a background character. On top of that, after the Flit arc, we never see him again, nor is he ever mentioned by another character, so here is the Largan representation right here. The UE end up arriving in force to attack Fardain, and only the combined forces of Zalem and Yuba, together with the Gundam Age 1 and Wolf's brand new mobile suit, the GXs, to fight them off. So yeah, this whole arc is about working together to fend off a greater enemy. Definitely a good lesson, and something that Gundam has touched on before, but this version of it is very on the nose. Plus, the Fardain arc takes up 5 episodes out of a total of 15 for the Flit arc. So to spend a third of the story on something that I find pretty boring is a tough pill to swallow, especially right at the start of the series. It does explain how Grodek got into the place that he is and why he hates the Federation and the UE, and gives him the means to do something about it, but really this could have been a 2-part episode and still have gotten the point across. At the end of this mini arc, we learn that Boyage has a supplier named Yark Dole, a man known as the Dark Merchant, who has access to advanced mobile suits and weapons. With the factions of Zalem and Yuba now working together and in Grodek's debt, they decide to lend their forces to his cause, 4 ships and their accompanying mobile suits. Grodek finally announces his master plan to get revenge on the UE, attacking their home base, an old abandoned space fortress named Ambad. But before that, the crew needs to head to another colony called Minzuri in order to prepare for the coming battle. After being pestered by everyone, Wolf takes Flit and a few others to a place called Madorna Workshop, an independent mobile suit station in space. Here we meet Madorna and his hot wife, and the crew realizes that Wolf sorta kinda stole some of the data on the Age 1 and used it to create his own cool suit. Sounds illegal, but so is modifying and building mobile suits without the Federation's knowledge, so everybody on the station just needs to shut the hell up about it. Not like they're exactly on the Federation's good side anyway, with the whole taking over the Diva and building your own mercenary army thing that they've got going on. While talking mobile suits with Madorna and his incredibly hot wife, yes, I just realized that I called her his hot wife twice in this script. They discover he's in possession of a UE mobile suit. Wolf initially calls Madorna a traitor and even goes to pull a gun on him, but the suit starts tearing through the hangar on its own. Madorna tells him that a man named Yark Dole delivered it and asked him to modify it, the same man who supplied Fardane with weapons. Flit has the Diva send him the Gundam, and he does that thing from Char's counterattack where he jumps through vacuum with no spacesuit. We see that Dezel is the one controlling the UE suit remotely, and he just cuts it off when he gets bored. That little shit. On the Diva, Grodek finally has to announce to the crew that he was never the real captain and decided to take the situation into his own hands after the fall of Nora. Despite this technically making the entire crew a bunch of mutineers, they all decide to follow his command and take on the fortress of Ambat, mostly because Grodek has been a skilled and knowledgeable captain from the start, and the original captain was going to just leave everyone to die. The UE do an all-out attack on the colony of Fardane, even using some advanced tactics to get the Zalem and Yuba suits to accidentally hit each other in the hope of dissolving the new alliance. In the battle, Don Boyage is killed, but not before telling Flit that he might be the one to change the world. He was able to reach the hearts of both Boyage and his adversary Rakt, so perhaps he can reach the hearts of everyone. A new black UE suit arrives, and when Flit attacks it, he gets a new type style flash and sees Dezel's face, leading him to believe that the UE aren't aliens, they're humans. He tells Grodek this, and Grodek is like, well, they look like humans, but they definitely aren't. And that's something that is going to stick with Flit and his personality until the end of the show, until this motherfucker is 85 years old. Also, I'm gonna rip this band-aid off right now. New types in Gundam Age are called X-Rounders, and unfortunately they're probably the most boring iteration of new types so far because there's just no real mystery to them. The Federation already knows about X-Rounders, and they know how X-Rounders' powers work, and there's no real philosophy around them. It's the polar opposite of something like how new types were utilized in Gundam X, where they're this mysterious and almost religious type of thing. Personally, if you're not going to do anything really interesting with the special powers in Gundam, I would rather you just not shoehorn them in. When the Diva arrives at Minzuri, Flit is reunited with Yurin from back in episode 1. Turns out she's been adopted by a rich guy named Burmings, a friend of Don Boyage, an overall nice guy who would definitely never do anything evil like, sell an orphan. Nope, never. Anyway, the Federation is here and they arrest Grodek, leading to a very interesting conversation where Grodek tells them that he knows that the Fedis are hiding the true identity of the UE. An interesting concept since they've been unknowable from the beginning. Seems like the Federation is even shadier than they usually are. Despite saving Grodek from the Federation, the Diva isn't in the clear yet as a fleet of Federation ships shows up outside Minzuri to take them out. However, they didn't count on the Diva's allies showing up to take them out from behind. The Yui also show up and start attacking both groups, and the Diva decides to band together with the Federation forces to take the aliens out, before the Federation decides to let them head to Ambat as a sign of respect for Grodek's conviction. Dezel shows up once more and takes Yurin away from Burmings, and it appears that she could be an X-Rounder. Also, dude, I don't care who you think Dezel is. How much of an out-of-touch rich bastard do you have to be to fucking sell an orphan the exact same day you adopt them? And also, Burmings is never seen again, so I guess I can only hope he explodes in my heart. Okay, to be fair, I think Burmings believes that going with Dezel to be the best thing for her for some reason, but like, come on, man, I can't get over that plot point. Now the Diva is heading directly for Space Fortress Ambat with her allies, and Flit marvels that the Age system was able to create a huge new cannon for the ship, something he had never thought of doing before. The battle for Ambat is pretty intense, and the Diva even transforms and looks remarkably similar to the White Base from Mobile Suit Gundam. The UE commander, a weird dude in a cool mask, even calls the Diva a Trojan horse, so they're all in on that Mobile Suit Gundam nostalgia. At this point, Flit's X-Rounder powers are developing rapidly, and he's taking out UE suits left and right. Remember in Mobile Suit Gundam how Amuro was like just a beast at the end of that show and no one could even touch him? That's basically Flit in episode 15 of Age. Well, at least until Dezel shows up. I do kind of like that Flit's rival in Age is a literal psycho 8-year-old. It just sort of works for this show, and damn, his voice actor really sells it. Dezel reveals that he has forced Yurin to pilot a pink mobile suit under the threat of never seeing Flit ever again. Dezel goes to destroy the Age 1 by stabbing the cockpit, but Yurin overcomes his control and gets in the way. The two say goodbye to each other, and Yurin confides in him that she wanted to be with him forever, live out a life that she could never know. And then her helmet cracks and she explodes. Flit gets so pissed off that he literally does the nothing personal kid thing and teleports behind Dezel. He lets the kid live, but now Flit is showing no mercy to any of the UE suits. He is literally on the warpath. Flit enters the base in order to destroy it from within and ends up confronting the UE commander, who we now know is named Gira Zol. Zol traps Flit inside a room with a bunch of UE suits, but Flit's like, wow, thanks for delivering more guys to kill, that is my hobby. Wolf shows up and helps Flit take out the base's reactor, and the two chase Zol on foot further into the fortress. Finally, with him cornered by Grodek, who is gung-ho to finally get revenge, we learn the true history of the UE. 150 years ago, the Federation decided that there were just too many people on the goddamn Earth, so they decided to lead a colonization effort to colonize the Mars sphere. Unfortunately, the Mars colonies were immediately subject to something called Mars rays, which basically give all of the colonists terrible space cancer. The Feddies just really didn't want to deal with that, so they just covered it up by saying everybody died. All the colonists on Mars, they're fucking dead, so don't worry about them at all. Don't even look over there. But the Mars colonists, now calling themselves the Vegan, are very much alive. Zol tells Flit to shoot him if he thinks he can handle killing another human, but Grodek shoots him instead. And then Gira Zol's kid comes in the room and points a gun at Grodek, but he slaps it away and says some of the coldest shit an adult can say to a kid. Flit swears to defend the UE and become the savior of the Earth sphere, and Grodek is thrown in jail for stealing the Diva, though he is respected and honored for destroying Ambat. Before we move on with the 25-year time skip, we're left to wonder if Flit will become that savior, or if his hatred of the Vegan will fester and transform him into something else. The Flit arc of Mobile Suit Gundam Age covers the first 15 episodes of the series, and while it isn't my favorite run of the entire franchise, I actually find it to be quite a strong opening. Sure, there are some lows here, a third of that runtime is relegated to a mini-arc that really drags, but the good action, clean animation style, and honestly great music really do make up for that shortcoming. Those last few episodes drew me in and won me over, ensuring that I did feel quite a bit of goodwill towards Age going into Arc 2. Beyond the pacing issue, there is something to be said for the Age device being used way too much here. It does undercut Flit's growth as a pilot when most of his battles feel like they're won for him by the introduction of some new weapon. Next week I will be going over the Asemu and Kyo arcs of the show, so make sure to tune in for that because there are some things, especially in Arc 3, that they kind of make me want to scream, to be frank. Overall though, Mobile Suit Gundam Age is certainly an interesting idea, even if the execution is ultimately kind of flawed. So yeah, that's all I have for you today. Tune in very quickly for part 2 where we wrap this up. And of course, feel free to leave your suggestions for series I should take a look at down in the comments below. It does help me out. I have a huge list on Google Drive of just a ton of things people have suggested. So I know I don't respond to a ton of comments, but if you've suggested something, it's probably on the list. So just a heads up on that. Of course, keep commenting because algorithm. Okay, bye. Hello everyone, welcome to today's end card. Let me start off by thanking my channel members, aka Batosai, Argent Griever, Ashar Khazar, Brian Sanchez, D Mells, Daniel Johnson, Deader V, Dilla Soul 22, Gert, Ghost, Joe Castellanos, Joe Cavazos, John Lim, Johnny G, Canto 20, McLean Nugent, Mr. Smash, Zappa Slave, Video Gamer 75, and Trey Hardy. My cat walked up and wanted pets as soon as I started, and it broke my brain when I hit the J's there. Thank you so much for watching this all the way to the end. If you got this far, you get a gold star, of course. I hope you guys have enjoyed the first half of the discussion on Gundam Age. I'm hard at work on the script for part 2, and I'm going to be finishing it this weekend, shooting it all week. And that's gonna be up next week, so we're gonna go Gundam, bam, bam, video 1, video 2, and that'll be that. Then after that, we are going to, I'm gonna try desperately to get the Gasaraki video out in November before Thanksgiving. So that means that December will start off with the Guyver, which I'm excited for, because the Guyver is amazing. Anyway, besides that, we do have, I took a little break from the gaming channel. I got sick and actually had to take like antibiotics and everything. So like I just did not, I did not have it in me to do gaming channel stuff. I've been building up some videos for that channel behind the scenes. So I kind of want to start releasing them in mass this coming week. So yeah, take a look out over at the Recon 404 Plays Games channel over there, because it's just raw gameplays with commentary. It's really fun, and it's a fun, silly time. Anyway, thank you all so much for watching once again, and I will see you very soon.